what you're seeing is the personal relationship on the screen, the big ticket items, the F-35s flying over Washington, D.C. to welcome the Saudi dignitaries. Green light from Washington for Saudi Arabia to buy those AI semiconductors. And those are, as you know, a very, very critical asset. Saudi Arabia, as we all know, has a very wealthy deposits of rare earth minerals. Defense procurement in the United States is very bureaucratic, very lengthy. It will take so many years. He's someone seen as a leader with a vision for the broader Middle East, for the broader region, and the weight of Saudi Arabia itself. Will the Iranian leadership be willing to negotiate with the United States and Israel? Will Iran be ready to accept Saudi mediation?
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Hindustan Times and my name is Aayesha Varma. Washington and Riyadh deepen ties with massive investments. United States President Donald Trump and the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman met at the White House, where Trump rolled out the red carpet for the Crown Prince. So what were the outcomes of this meet? Let's welcome our guest to the broadcast, Mr. Mohammed Soliman, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. Mr. Soliman, thank you once again for joining us.
Always great to be with you, Aayesha.
Firstly, let's talk about the beginning of the visit. What did you think about the warm welcome? Marching bands, a military flyover?
It speaks to the personal relationship between President Trump and the Saudi Crown Prince. They have personal relationship that endured when President Trump was out of office, 2021 to 2024. They maintain contact. So what you're seeing is the personal relationship on the screen, the big ticket items, the F-35s flying over Washington, D.C. to welcome the Saudi dignitaries.
Absolutely, and that also has its very own significance in itself. But how much of the US president's effort to warmly welcome MBS is born out of the recent Israeli attack on Qatar, a US ally?
I think the US Saudi relationship stands on its own. I think Trump personally thinks that the Gulf is a new Europe. Financially, technologically, economically, he believes that those Arabian Gulf states leaders are forward looking, forward leaning, are taking their countries forward. And he wants the United States, under his own leadership, to be part of this new story in the Gulf.
Okay. Now, coming to the deals, business opportunities, artificial intelligence, defense, what were the major deals that were signed during this trip?
Few things that worth highlighting for your audience. One, and this is the most important part in my own work, is the AI agreement. As you know, Saudi Arabia has now a company called Humane. It's under PIF, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, that's focused on turning Saudi Arabia into an AI hub or building compute infrastructure. Compute is the fuel that we need for all the AI layers, from software to applications. So they were able to get green light from Washington for Saudi Arabia to buy those AI semiconductors. And those are, as you know, a very, very critical asset. And Washington doesn't give them away without any sort of guarantees and political commitments. So Saudi Arabia was able to get this sort of green light from Trump. And today we have seen the Department of Commerce announcing that Humane is granted license to buy chips. So this is the first thing. AI chips is the name of the game. The second thing is critical minerals. Saudi Arabia, as we all know, has a very wealthy deposits of rare earth minerals and minerals broadly speaking. They have mining, they're expanding the processing capabilities inside the kingdom. We're seeing now that the United States want to rely on Saudi Arabia as a hub for processing minerals coming out of Africa and other markets. This is part of America's strategy to reduce the dependency on China when it comes to critical minerals. So this is the second thing, critical minerals. The third thing is a civilian nuclear cooperation agreement. This being said, there are some critical technological and technical aspects of this agreement that were not hashed out, and mainly because of the enrichment question. Saudi Arabia wants to enrich uranium on soil in Saudi Arabia. There's still some conversations. And finally, and this is basically the agreement that got all the headlines, is the defense agreement. Designation of Saudi Arabia as a non-NATO member ally And on top of that, by executive order, the United States has defense commitments to the kingdom. And that, of course, builds on the US commitment to Qatar after the Israeli attack on Doha a few months ago.
Absolutely. Now, one crucial aspect of the sale of F-35 jets to Saudi Arabia was discussed by Trump. America's policy of qualitative military edge, we're seeing a departure from that. Trump told the Crown Prince that the F-35s would be top of the line. They won't be downgraded to ensure Israel's military superiority in the region. Tell us more about what you think this decision signifies.
I will caution, meaning, of course, he believes that there is a strong relationship with Saudi Arabia. Of course, he greenlighted the sale of F-35 to Saudi Arabia. But as you know very well, defense procurement in the United States is very bureaucratic, very lengthy. It will take so many years. So for us to see F-35 flying under the Saudi flag, it will take so many years. And on top of that, there are technical questions and defense questions that are going to be left out to the Pentagon and the Saudi defense officials to hash out. So, of course, the statement itself is important because it indicates how he thinks about the relationship with Saudi Arabia, politically speaking and diplomatically. But I wouldn't say that everything we said will translate into technical realities.
Okay, so then let's talk about the Abraham Accords. The Crown Prince doubled down on the establishment of a Palestinian state as a necessity for Saudi Arabia to join. Now, the leaders have signaled that there's been progress on the matter. What is the inside story here?
The Saudi position is very clear, and you and I talked before the trip, and I told you hear from Saudis, do not hear about Saudis. And the Crown Prince inside the Oval Office made the statement. He wants to join an expansive version of Abraham Accords. But what's the condition? The condition is irreversible, clear pathway that's time bound to a two-state solution, which means a Palestinian state. Clearly, the leadership inside Israel doesn't believe that this is something that they're willing to give. And because of that, the Abraham Accord as a geopolitical framework for Washington to engage with Arab states in DC is no longer the core tenet. It's no longer the pillar of US foreign policy. And it's very simple. I mean, you are seeing all these deals happening that were supposed to be tied to Abraham Accords. We were supposed to work with Saudi Arabia on building a civilian nuclear program under the umbrella of Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia was supposed to get F-35 under the umbrella of Abraham Accords. Clearly, that's no longer the main condition. The main condition is the bilateral relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia. And frankly speaking, this is healthy. This is good. This is good that the relationship between Washington and Saudi stands on its own, is very bilateral, and Washington sees value in the relationship and should not be conditioned on other third party dynamics.
Okay. Now, the US president also announced that America is recognizing Saudi Arabia as a major non NATO ally, something that you just touched upon moments ago. Essentially, they're joining 19 other nations that have this label. But what does this mean for the kingdom?
It's an elevation, it's an official stamp on the defense ties between the kingdom and the United States. It means different bureaucratic situation or process when it comes to the sale of American defense equipment to the kingdom, different sort of treatments, trainings, inclusion. So it means a lot of things from defense ties standpoint. And on top of that, politically speaking, it's kind of a big deal, right? America, even you said it's 19 countries. Those are the top 19 countries that America believes that they are very strong members of the American umbrella or American ecosystem or the American alliance. So they're not really granting this designation lightly, and I think it speaks very well to what Saudi Arabia means for the United States today. So on the political level, it means a lot.
All right. So, speaking about what Saudi Arabia means when we talk about America, would you say that it's correct to call MBS a spokesperson for the Middle East as far as relations with America are concerned?
He is one of the most important leaders in the Middle East. That's factual. It's because he has been transforming his own society for the past almost 10 years. He's someone seen as a leader with a vision for the broader Middle East, for the broader region. and the weight of Saudi Arabia itself. This is a very important country. This is a leading nation in the Middle East. I would argue this is the spiritual leader of the Muslim world for all the obvious reasons. So of course he has a lot of weight, he has a lot of influence, and he is a very significant leader to have a relationship with.
Okay. Beyond this, the Crown Prince also said that Saudi Arabia would do their best to help with a deal between Iran and America, months after the 12-day Iran Israel war. Do you think Saudi Arabia's mediation would help?
This is a very tough question. And it's not really about Saudi Arabia. It's about Iran and where Iran is today, right? Iran was hurt badly, its infrastructure, the Iranian public faith in the regime in Tehran, the way they managed the discourse with the United States, and on top of that, the military failure to protect the people. So you have all these dynamics at the same time. So, will the Iranian leadership be willing to negotiate with the United States and Israel? Will Iran be ready to accept Saudi mediation? The Saudi interest is very clear. The Saudis want a much more stable region because you cannot have economic development, progress, and building AI infrastructure in a region that's very volatile. So, of course, Riyadh wants a much more stable region and have a sort of framework and de-escalate between all these fighting parties. But I'm not really sure if Iran is there in terms of actually sitting at the table and accept a framework, or at least figure out a new format to move forward.
Okay. And when we're talking about ties, do you think that MBS can balance ties between the US on one side and China and Russia on the other?
It will depend on what exactly we're talking about. I would put Russia in a different bucket right now. Let's talk about United States and China. Those are, I would say, the two main players. When it comes to AI infrastructure, it's the United States. Like, what's the best in class? It's NVIDIA chips, and this is going to be the way forward on AI infrastructure. America has all these great American hyperscalers, Google's and AWS and Microsoft's, who have enterprise layers and have global penetration. Those are great partners for Saudi Arabia to build their own AI ecosystem. Same thing when it comes to space. If you want to build a space program, you should go work with NASA because NASA is best in class when it comes to space cooperation. On top of that, uh, China is the biggest consumer of oil coming out of the Gulf. So this is a very important relationship. But so far, when it comes to defense, when it comes to security framework, with all the criticism for American security footprint in the region, America has a security footprint in the region. Meanwhile, China doesn't. One small base in Djibouti cannot really offer cover or the security needs in the region. So clearly, it depends on what side we're talking about, like what sort of economic or defense or security aspects we're talking about. But it's always going to be a dance. Russia, I would say, much more marginalized in the region than people think. Way marginalized. They leverage their integration within the defense platforms systems in the region is not as it used to. This is no longer the Soviet Union of the 1970s, 1980s. Moscow has its own problems in Ukraine, so I wouldn't really put Moscow at the same level as Beijing and of course Washington in the Middle East.
All right, Mr. Soliman, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with more crucial insight on what's taken place at the White House when we talk about the meet between the Saudi Crown Prince and the US President Donald Trump.
Thank you, Aisha. Looking forward to be back again on your show.
Absolutely. Likewise.